Marty Kohler, Patrick Flannery. And Bob wants to speak on one person.
With this moment of silent meditation, I want to thank Sergeant Sean M. Farrell for giving the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. I want to thank everyone in here. I was in the motorcycle procession today. I can only imagine there was 500 to 700 motorcycles without exaggerating. Fire trucks from Ulster County, Orange County, in the streets that were lined. It's really kind of sad that it takes such a tragedy like this to see such unity in all our communities and all the people, and you really see that we all have a common denominator, and that's just to cherish one another and be happy with being able to live. To pull in the skate time today, to see that family, it was heart-wrenching. The worst part was passing through Rosendale School to see all those children holding up the American flag. So, once again, I just want to thank all of you, our communities that came out today for the procession, and hopefully, if you can, the funeral will be tomorrow from 10 to 12. They'll allow the public to go in for viewing. At 1 o'clock, the funeral will be held. Thank you.
Before we start, looks like we quickly ran out of agendas, so I'm just going to say the agenda so everybody knows. First, we are going to make a motion to hire Thomas Roddy as a youth worker. Tim Allred's here to speak on HRVR Summer Swim. Craig Marty's here from Barton Loguidice to talk about a grant that we are processing. A review of the HRVR Workforce Housing Agreement and the HRVR Local Sourcing Agreement. A presentation on Community Choice Aggregation, New York State by Jen Metzger. A review of the Rosendale Street Festival site plan. A review of the High Falls Border District out-of-district user approval. And the review of the New York State Unified Solar Panel Permit. A resolution to apply for CFA New York's Rising grants. A resolution for MS4 2013-2014 Stormwater report. And resolution for quick claim deed of easement for the High Falls Border District. So I apologize, we ran out of these. First, I'd like to see if anybody has any public input or community events they'd like to mention.
Yeah, we on Main Street have formed a Main Street Improvement Association. This was partly triggered by our difficulties with all that snow and duplicating, and so we decided to try and organize to together work out some problems in town. And so we are meeting Thursday as a small group at the 1850s house at, I believe, 5:30.
And tomorrow, Thursday?
Yes, tomorrow, Thursday. And I'm going to leave you with this letter that we're distributing to residents and businesses to announce a May 20th meeting for everyone to get involved. And we would also like if we could have a liaison from the board. I know Jen Metzger said she would be interested, but I know it's up to you to decide. But if we could possibly have someone from the board to work with us to help us problem solve.
Why don't you give me a call tomorrow and we'll talk about it. I would like to know a little bit more about your...
Very good. And I'll leave this with you. I only have one copy.
Anybody else? Jeff?
I'd like to invite everybody this Saturday, May 10th, to the auction at Williams Lake Hotel, and also May 24th and May 25th, we're having the Mother of All yard sales. Not only a yard sale of all the stuff from the hotels and buildings, we're having the food pantry come in, and they're going to be selling stuff, so it'll be a fundraiser for the food pantry, and also the Rosendale Theater Collective will be there raising money for them, and it's not only going to be a yard sale, it's going to be an event. We're having food trucks and bands there, so it's going to be a good time. I hope everybody comes out. Thank you.
Jeff, is that why you've been watching Storage Wars lately?
And Peckers. And I'm going to have an art booth there with lots of upcycled art from the property, so get your eyes ready.
Thank you,
So,
Jeff.
I have a question, is it Williams Lake yard sale, or are people from the community selling things?
Well,
Is
people
it-
from the community are encouraged to
Have a
show
table.
up, and the pool fund will be there. And Tara, if you have any questions, Tara, like, people from the community can join either the theater collective, or the food pantry, or the pool fund, because they're all gonna have booths there.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you can
but-
contribute items to sell for those?
Yes,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
it's
Yeah.
not,
All right,
It's not open to the
That's what I
public to
wanted
have a
to
booth.
know, okay.
No.
it's local nonprofits that
Right.
registered interest, they'll have space and they keep whatever they make.
Sure, great.
And if anybody wants to join them and has some stuff to donate to them, you know, all the money will go to them. But yeah, if you're looking to get rid of some stuff.
Okay, anybody else?
Saturday night fundraiser for the theater Sonic Soul Band, 9:30. $7, $5 if you're a member.
And that's going to be held here?
That's gonna be at the theater.
Jack?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on Main Street people are going to get together. I had another incident on Main Street in front of the cheese factory where a couple of people were walking up and one stepped out onto the street to go around the flower pots. And again, like I said, I'm doing my 20, 25 miles an hour when I go on Main Street because I know all the people. It's just getting a little bit crowded there, I think, to have all those pots and the tables and chairs and that sitting bench that's out in front of the handicap ramp. Maybe if you took the ramp away, the bench away, people could walk by and not be able to step out
Have
in the
you approached the
street.
theater, because you've mentioned this before, did you ask them to? shift
I haven't
their-
asked anybody, I mean,
I'll talk
a
to
little
them.
common sense.
Talk to them, you are them.
Yeah. I'm not all of them, I'm just
I've
one
had-
of them.
Don't talk to me.
Two incidents where there was 3 or 4 people walking, and one stepped out in the street to walk around the flower pot and come back on, never
Yeah.
even looked, just
Yeah.
stepped right out in the road.
Yeah, I'll talk to, that's Big Cheese too, so I'll talk to them both.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's
There's no
getting a
reason
little
why it
bit,
couldn't be rearranged a little bit, so
Yeah,
it's a little
absolutely.
safer.
I mean, if you can teach everybody to walk single file, well, God bless you, but in the meantime, somebody's gonna get hurt there, you know.
And I respect what you're saying, I think it's been brought to the people who, who have the space. I'd rather not to have to get the town involved and make it a violation or something. If you guys can figure it out, make it fixed, that would be nice. And before I
Yeah.
have to have a code enforcement officer go down and deal with
Let
it.
me make a note of it.
All right.
So 5:30 at the 1850
And,
house?
maybe
5:30,
it'd be a good
1850
idea
house.
to attend their meetings, since you have a.
All right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it? All right, I'd like to start by making a motion to hire Thomas Roddy as youth worker at $8 per hour.
I'll second it.
Oh, you both want to say?
It's my youth commission.
Okay, boys. Fight over.
It's
like an episode of
Ready, one, two, three, right?
No, he's right.
You tagged
This is-
in first.
Hey, did you see I'm right? Did you call him late?
All right.
Rovo, Councilman Hassett.
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger.
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski.
Yes.
Councilman Ryan.
Yes.
Supervisor Wall.
Yes. Okay, and
Did you?
first we have a speaker. Tim Allred is here to present a summer swim at HRVR, Williams Lake Project.
Yes, everybody should have one. Everyone at this table, anyway.
Do you have enough for yourself?
Just barely. Okay, well, thank you to the town for the opportunity and to everyone here. We're very excited to make this proposal. Before I walk you through it quickly, I just wanted to take the moment to congratulate the town. I think it's probably mostly the supervisor for pretty amazing work in getting money raised to get that pool back on its feet. While it's closed for this summer, we're eager to see if we can help. And so the proposal is that the Williams Lake Project would like to work with the town, like we did in a fundraiser a couple years ago, to offer a summer swim program at Williams Lake this summer. So the basic idea of this would be that, like we did the fundraiser, the town would be the legal responsible party and apply for a permit, provide insurance, and then we would operate a summer program which would be open to the public. The basic who's, what's, where's, when's, and how's are, we'd be prepared to do this on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from July 4th through Labor Day Monday. So do 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We propose noon to 7, which is pretty close to what Moriello Pool does in New Paltz, which is sort of a model for us. $10 an adult, $6 for children. A twilight swim for after 5 o'clock for $5. People could drive in and park or come right off the rail trail and go for it. Our responsibilities would be to operate all aspects of the program. Jeff Booz, who I guess everybody knows, would run the program, and the business administration side would be another colleague who couldn't be here tonight, Alana Medlock. But we'd hire staff, lifeguards, make sure it's safe, charge fees, collect the money, do all of that stuff that you need to do, provide equipment, etc. We would actively look for business sponsors to sponsor weekends or days or whatever to help offset expenses. And Brian Cafferty, who works with the project, would be helping with that. At the end of the summer, we would provide a report like we did for the fundraiser to the town, and any net revenue after all of our expenses would go straight, 100% straight to the Rosendale Pool Fund. So it's a fundraising summer with an opportunity to get people in the lake, which I think folks have been wanting to do. And then the town's responsibilities would be to provide insurance and name us as an additional insured like you did last time, complete the permit application, help us promote the summer so we can get enough people there. If you like, operate a fundraising table for the pool fund, sell t-shirts, and then pay a fee, which is based on two things. The first one is that last time we did this, there was concern that because the project has business with the town, that we make sure to have an arm's length relationship. So we based the recommended fee here on a discount of about a third from what we did 2 years ago, which was $500 a day for that fundraiser. So, you know, this is a proposal, it's open for discussion, but that's the short of it. We've already invested a bunch of time and energy and work on this. We hope the town can say yes and we can really plug in. Jeff's ready to go. We have lifeguards in waiting. We have a lot of things that we would need to do to make it happen. But we see it as a big opportunity for everybody and to help the pool get kind of over the finish line. So that's it.
So first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to Tim and everybody that's involved in the project. That this is a great opportunity for two things. We're both to open up the swimming for the public, which everybody's been eager to have a place to swim without the pool open, and everybody's been eager to be able to go to the lake to swim. So it provides a service for the community, so I feel we can justify that. We're paying money for a service to provide swimming for the town because there's no pool. Secondly, obviously, it's always great that we can have this opportunity to raise the rest of the funds, or at least another section or portion of the remaining money that we still need for the pool. So I would just say to the rest of the board that I'm in support of this. I'd like to see this happen. It was successful the last time. We did a one-weekend event, and I believe we brought in about $7,000 in profit, if I'm correct. on
That's
that.
about right, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity for the pool. So I think it's a win-win both ways, and I have looked into the fact that there really isn't anywhere else that we could do this in Rosendale. There aren't any other swimming facilities, so this would be the only opportunity in Rosendale to be able to do this. I've checked with the county. They're pretty sure. They didn't double check, but as far as we can tell, there's no other place that would be available to swim, so it's a good opportunity. So.
Right, and that would mean that if that's the case, if the county confirms that, this would be a sole source sort of deal, because it would be the only game in town where this could take place, so you wouldn't have to do requests for proposals because of no one else. You could, if there are other places that could do it, you would have to follow procurement.
That makes sense. Do you understand that?
I think so. I hope that means that,
We're pretty sure that you would not have to go out for an RFP because it's a sole source.
right.
I think also, thank you, Tim, and HRVR. The other thing, like we mentioned last year, is by having this open up to the public, it's a deterrent to keep young kids and that going into places swimming where they're not supposed to be on those real hot days. As we know, High Falls has had a lot of serious injuries and deaths, so to have this opportunity to have a safe place for people to go instead of, we were all young once, forcing themselves into places that they're not supposed to be and very dangerous. I think it's great, and you guys are great to do all the legwork for us. Jeff, Tim, the organization.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, the last couple of times we did this, we learned how to do it. It is a lot of work. I think the good news is by doing it for a longer run in the summer, it's a lot of setup costs, and then it's a little bit easier once you've got it together. We kind of know how to do that. It does have some real cost to it, but once we get it open with Jeff and lifeguards, we can kind of run smoothly and give that option for folks on those hot days. Somebody just told me it's going to be a super hot summer, so who knows?
Is there some method to that madness? I don't know. Anybody else?
I'd just like to weigh in, and, Tim, thank you for, this offer that you've put before us. And as Gene said, it's a win-win for everybody in town. The very fact that there's an opportunity to close the gap on the pool funding, that's a great thing. But secondary to that is what Bobby just mentioned, that we'll have a place in town where we and our children can go and swim safely. Again, being a High Falls fireman, Bob referenced it before, we pulled too many people out of the creek up there simply because it's one of the only places in the immediate area where people can go on a hot day to swim. So to give them an alternative to go into a great lake and have a structured environment where it's supervised, that's fantastic. And it also, I think, says a lot about the project, reaching back into the community and offering what's been said from the very beginning, that people want to be able to utilize the lake. So it's a win-win for everybody. I'm 100% behind it.
Okay. And Gene, just could you tell me what happens? How does this move forward if it moves forward?
I think there's some time constraints here, so I would suggest that between now and next week, I'll probably have to draft a contract based on the proposal and put it before the board on Wednesday.
Great. Yeah, because that is just our concern is we've got a lot of focus on this right now. We've kept it quiet because we need the town has to be with the town. And if the town can do it, then we have a lot of work to do to get everything ready.
I already know that we can do the insurance. We've done the health department stuff before, so I'm pretty confident that's not a problem. We have the equipment that we can provide in kind.
How about the money?
I'm sorry?
The money.
The money is, we can come up with the money, the $10,000, especially if you figure we're gonna get money back, so.
Can I chime in on the money
Yeah.
part? A lot of the money that would have been used for the pool now, that's not being used. I think that may be a source, you know.
I think she's talking about it's not budgeted for, we don't have a budget for that, but I do have some contingency money that I.
Just as being on the
And then we
recognition.
can pay it back when it's done. Wouldn't that be okay, Mary Lou?
Yeah, now the fundraising aspect actually will be going to the
To the
a 501c,
That's
Yes.
right.
and then
Yep.
we'll put it back. So, you guys can just determine next week if you have
I mean,
somewhere
I
to
have-
take this money from, you can do a transfer from contingency or
Mhm.
from
We can even take it from.
somewhere in the rec
capital.
budget
Yeah,
or
Capital
Pool.
pool.
cap.
And
Can't
then
take
we
it from
have
capital.
Capital pool.
But we have
You
a
can take it from
pool, we
capital,
have
but
a
if
pool
you
rec
have-
fund too.
Yes.
If you have pool rec, you can take
Yeah.
it from there, but you can't
Yeah.
take it from
We could
capital.
take it from pool rec.
Yeah.
Capital goes to building.
Well, when it's built.
We'll get there eventually. We're really close.
So I'm glad that's your problem. But on our side, I mean, just to be really clear, we expect that with sponsorship alone, we will recover a lot of that, if not all of that money. And then, assuming that we all get people there, we have a
Can you
kind of a
explain,
business.
can you explain the sponsorship part of it, because I don't think everybody understands what you mean by that.
Brian,
You wanna take it?
Brian can. Or do you want me to?
No,
Okay.
it's okay. So, there's an opportunity to go out to different companies that will want to help underwrite this program for the summer. So any of that money, just reduces the overall expenses of what it costs to operate the program. So we've put together a sponsorship program where there's a three-tiered program. It's a $2,500 top-level sponsor, a $1,500 mid-level sponsor, and a $750 sponsorship. So I will be going out, and there will be a number of businesses that will likely want to sponsor this program. It's a wonderful thing for them to do to help underwrite the program because they're directly benefiting the pool fund. And a lot of these businesses have long-standing relationships with the resort. And one of the features of the sponsorships is going to be an opportunity for businesses, if they come in at the top level, to host a company picnic on one of the days that they're there. So it's an opportunity, which one of the things that nobody's mentioned about what's so cool about this program, for me, is it's an opportunity for people to sort of experience the end of an era and say goodbye to the former Williams Lake, because after this summer, there's, some of the buildings are going to be raised, and so it's all part of that. So I think we're going to have sponsorships are not going to be that difficult.
Yeah, and you had sponsors the last time too.
Well, one thing I did notice too, I guess we can go anywhere for sponsors because there's no residents or non-residents. It's the same price for everybody, whether you're a Rosendale resident or an outsider, correct?
Well, this is a proposal, right? This is what we came up with. There's good ideas and good input. I mean, I think just an hour ago, I mentioned this to someone, and they said, is that the Loriello New Paltz charge or the not New Paltz charge? Because they price differently if you're a resident. I can't remember. I think that's the, if you live in New Paltz, Moriello fee. I can't,
Big difference.
$10. So, if the town felt like they wanted to charge more to folks who weren't from Rose, now I remember, we did talk about it and we thought it would be cumbersome for folks taking the money and registering, giving wristbands to try to figure out who lived
Who's really a
where.
resident, who isn't.
And so we wanted to keep it simple.
Well, I'm just thinking, if we keep it all on the same plane, the same charge everywhere, then that opens the door up for us to seek out additional sponsorships that may not be in the town of Rosendale.
Of course.
We may be able to infiltrate Kingston and, some of the other surrounding areas instead of always depending on our business people right in our small town to give up the goods.
There's also one other major factor for the success of this program that we haven't had in the past. The rail trail's open.
Right.
You can ride your bike right to the place and swim from Kingston and as far south as Gardner.
Yeah, we'll have signs on the rail trail, and we'll have access points to get into the swim right from the rail trail. So you're hot, you're on your bike, you're hot, you're hiking, come on in, cool down, have some water. We're gonna have, hopefully when we get approved, that we'll have food truck there and, of the like.
Okay.
Right, so all this is, we just wait to hear from you and then
Do you
we'll
want to
we'll
do,
flip
can
the
we
switch.
make a motion to draft a, should we do that? Draft a contract for next week?
Absolutely.
Do that?
And then you can vote on passage of it next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I share the concern. I know we always have this concern about budget, and as long as there's someplace that we can safely take it from, and that we can have a mechanism to replenish it when we're done, I think we stand to see a very good return on investment.
Yeah.
And this is an amazing opportunity that you're offering the town as a government, as well as our residents and our neighboring residents that want to come. So,
I think that's,
So I think that, I mean, the budget isn't an issue because we're only in the halfway point of the year. It's not like we're down, we don't have money to make counts or anything like that.
that's a good question.
So I'll make a
Successful business people
motion.
always say it takes money to make money, so.
I'll make a motion to draft a contract with Williams Lake project to allow swimming for the summer program based on their proposal.
I'll second.
You too.
I'm gonna
You're
do
the
half
referee.
of
He
mine.
gets the spread.
Councilman Hassett.
This turn.
Roll vote, Councilman Hassett,
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger,
Yes, and I'd just like to add that, I appreciate that, it's an arm's length transaction, since we do have an ongoing, eventually, a site plan before the planning board, and I think I look forward to swimming in the lake. Please.
Councilman Kozlowski,
yes.
Councilman Ryan,
Yes.
Supervisor Walsh.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a speaker from Barton Loguidice, Craig Marty, right? Marti. And Craig's here to talk about the project, the stormwater mitigation.
Stormwater mitigation and loan.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Again, for the record, I am from Barton Loguidice. I'm a senior managing engineer from our Newburgh office. The project that we undertook was actually a grant application under the Storm Mitigation Loan Program, which is a federally funded response to Sandy and other hurricane events over the last few years. So the money is being funded from the federal government, passed through the state and through the Environmental Facilities Corp. The project that we focused on was an infiltration and inflow problem, which is experienced at the sewer treatment facility. And for the benefit of the public and the board members, again, the I&I, as we refer to it, is inflow and infiltration, which allows stormwater to get into the storms or into the sanitary sewer system, and then it increases the flows that you treat at the sewer treatment plant, which effectively means you're treating rainwater before it's discharged to the stream. The process was to analyze the storm weather and storm data over the last 3 years. We took a look at the storm events and the sewer plant flows, and the information that I've handed out for the board's benefit is really a bullet point version of the preliminary engineering report, which was submitted to the state as part of the grant application itself. And the area that we have there, the first page is basically a map of the sewer system, which has color-coded sizes of the pipe system, shows where the 3 pump stations are located, and the 3 pump stations are located, basically the big one across the bridge along Route 32. There's another smaller one down at the end by the other bridge, and then there's another small pump station out by the Little League field. So that's basically a layout of the system with the pipe sizes designated by different colors on the map. The process that we went through was to look at what the sewer flows would be expected to be if it wasn't raining, if there was no stormwater entering the system. So we looked at the driest 20-day period or driest 3-week period over the last 3 years and looked at, and we've charted the sewer flows in relation to the rainfall, and we've also plotted on there the average water usage and water production that you've distributed through the community. Basically, you would expect a little bit less the water to come back into the sewer system. We lose some water that's distributed through washing cars, evaporation, and just general leaks in the system. So during the dry period, we did find that the the sewer flows at the sewer plant were actually underneath the water distribution, and it ran pretty well consistent. There were a few burps when it did rain during that period. There were some still slight increases at the sewer plant. Then looking over the 3-year period at the average monthly rainfall, we noticed that there were significant increases in the plant flow when we had a wet month. And the statistical analysis of that data indicated that during the average flow throughout the year, or throughout the 3-year period, roughly 21% of the total flow that's experienced at the sewer treatment plant, and the water that you treat at the sewer plant, is from external sources, with the inflow and infiltration, which either enters the ground, either enters the system through manhole covers that are flooded and inundated, downspouts from houses that are hooked up to the sanitary sewer, which they shouldn't be, but in older communities that's often the case, as well as infiltration that goes through the ground and then comes into the system through cracks and pipes and deteriorated manholes and the like. And the timing of the data reflects you have both an inundation system or inflow issue with the immediate response, and then some of the recovery times indicate that the plant flow is still influenced even after the rain event has been going for a few days, so that the time it takes for the plant to recover, the flows to recover to a normal basis, indicates that there's water going through the ground and taking longer to get to the system, which keeps the flows elevated for a longer period of time. Then we looked at the wettest 3 weeks over the last 3 years, and we found that the spikes and the peaks with regards to the wetter months and the larger rain events resulted in, during the wetter months and the wet periods of the season, we have as much as a 41% factor as far as the flow that's going to the plant is actually rainwater influenced flow. And then we looked at the extreme event and extreme cases of the hurricane flows from the past, and we found that during the worst events, we had as high as 88.5% of the flow going through the treatment plant appears to be from external and from rainwater sources as opposed to sewage sources. So what we propose to do about this, we know that we have a problem. We're not sure where the water is actually coming from. We have some anecdotal evidence of some ground shifting and some work that the DOT did to stabilize Route 213 as it heads out of the hamlet. We suspect that there's some joints that are out of alignment, and there's some sources for the inflow to enter the pipes out in that area. We also suspect with an older village that there will be some downspouts that are connected, or some catch basins that have been either originally installed to be connected, or there have been problematic flooding conditions, and then the quick fix was to connect it to the sewer line as opposed to flood the driveway or flood the squeaky wheel in a business area. So we find these illicit connections do exist. They're not unique to Rosendale. They exist in every community that we enter and evaluate this. So the way we find this is we put meters in the system. We're proposing 3 meters at strategically located positions. We would then, based on that analysis, we suspect that based on the larger pipe diameter and the more critical pipe being the one that goes up Main Street and out of the village, in conjunction with the fact that we'll be excavating and digging up parts of that area anyway, we would like to get in there and TV it and see exactly, we put closed circuit TVs in within the pipeline itself, and we identify areas where the pipes are cracked or broken, and then we determine whether we can fix it, with non-invasive techniques like pipe lining systems that we can send machines in the pipe, or in some instances we can even line the entire pipe from manhole to manhole to fix that problem without having to excavate the street. Other areas, if we see pipes that are actually physically collapsed to a point where they need to be excavated, the excavation is better to take place sooner rather than later with regards to the ongoing construction that you'll have there anyway. So then in conjunction with that, we also do what's referred to as smoke testing, which actually pumps a non-toxic, non-hazardous smoke into the sewer system itself. And then we look for areas where it comes up out of the ground or comes up out of the downspouts on the houses, and then we can identify where areas of cross connections are, which can be then separated and directed to a storm sewer, which will further reduce that amount that gets to the sewer system. So basically, we've outlined a program where we can do the inspections and testing and identify where the leaks are, so then we can then design the fix. And the reporting that goes with that and everything, it comes up to about a $90,000 project with some contingencies. We're basically applied for through the grant program for a $95,000 project. The grant program that we've submitted this to is it's a loan program, but the terms and conditions of the loan are 25% reduction in principal off the top, and then the remaining 75% is a zero interest loan over the 20-year period, 20 or 30-year period, which would be the life of the improvements that we'll make. So the application is currently pending with EFC. They've indicated that they've got a much larger application pile than they have pile of money. But as I spoke with the supervisor today, Rosendale is positioned such that there's the New York Rising program, which you're pursuing money and funding through there. This is the type of project that could possibly be linked with that program, or such that this can be used as New York Rising status to leverage the criticality and the prioritization of this project with regard, as opposed to other projects that have applied. And with the upcoming consolidated funding application, which is open now and they're due in about 45 days, there's another opportunity where this does qualify under the engineering planning grants part of the program, which is money from state money through EFC, and that's a different source, a different pile of money. That it basically has a 20% match, and it's actually a grant. So it's with this size community, it's limited to $30,000. So we may be able to get 80% of the $30,000 as a grant, and then you would have to look at whether we reduce the scope of the work to only hit the critical places, or whether we can find other local sources to do the entire hamlet area, entire sewer system. So that's conversations we can have as far as the upcoming opportunities for the consolidated funding application, and I'll be glad to entertain those questions now if you'd like.
I have a couple of questions. One thing I'm wondering is there a part of this project on what to do with the stormwater, how to mitigate the stormwater that is coming from, let's say, someone's home or areas where they're not supposed to go into the sewer district's lines? So now you protect the lines from getting the stormwater. What do we do with that stormwater? Is any of this going to address that?
Right. Well, this scope of this work
I know this is
here
plan.
is to find the problems.
Yes.
But then the ultimate fix is yes, it's a two-pronged approach. We fix the pipes, we fix the manholes, and then we fix and disconnect, go in and disconnect the downspouts. A lot of times, once we identify them, the homeowners can, it's a matter of education. Most of the homeowners don't conscientiously, add extra water to the sewer system.
Right.
In some instances, it's just a matter of separating the downspouts where it enters the ground, plugging it off, and homeowners would do that voluntarily. In some instances, other instances, we would have to go in and actually find a way for that water to be redirected into a storm sewer system, which is separate and goes to
Yeah,
the
some
stream
of them,
separately.
if they take the stormwater line out of the sewer district, it's going to flood their basement.
Right.
So.
No, that's a very common occurrence, and we do look at
Right.
how, we will be looking not only at what the problem is, but then the next phase, once we know what the problems are, then we can enter into a design phase
Okay.
to figure out what the solutions are. Some may be very obvious and very simple, and others may be more involved with regards to excavation of the areas or installation of short sections of storm sewer, as opposed to fixing a sanitary sewer.
Yeah, and I just want to let the board know, if you look through your correspondence, the packet is the stormwater mitigation projects that Rising identified, and all the projects that Rosendale has, and quite a bit of it is about stormwater control.
I just had a simple question here. Referring to the legend for the diagram, it says sewer sheds. Now, a sewer shed, I take it is the sewer pipes?
No, it's the area that contributes to that portion of the pipe.
You mean like a watershed instead of a watershed?
Instead of a watershed, it would be, it's for instance, the area to the south of the stream, like west of 32, south of the stream itself is outlined as one area, and that basically is the area that flows to the main pump station before it's pumped over to the sewer plant. Then there's another sewer shed that's out by the Little League fields. It's a little bit easier to see and explain maybe. There's a small rectangular
Right.
box. That area goes to the pump station that's by the Little League fields before it's pumped back into the gravity part of the system. So it's a unique area that we can measure through the pump station as to how much sewer comes from that particular area.
So we don't have any lines, according to this diagram, that's in the creek.
No, well, they go across on the main bridge,
Got it,
but that's the only crossing, isn't it, Terry? It's the main bridge itself.
Yeah.
got it.
And that's from a pump station that's located on this side of the stream, and then it pumps across the bridge.
Understand, thank you.
And that line we do expect to be in pretty good condition because it was relatively new and repaired.
Did we do this application, since you guys have been on? Did we do this before?
Yeah,
This
I
was
have
in
a,
January.
I have a couple of questions about it. Well, one, you had said that, I'm not, when you were trying to explain where this infiltration is coming from in stormwater, you had mentioned the work on 213. Are you suggesting that the work caused that, or that problem is what contributed to the undermining of 213?
No, not at all. What I'm trying to what I would indicate is that the same problem, the moving soils that caused the need for the retaining wall and the need for the work on 213, that movement of the soils would have caused the dislocation of the sewer pipe. So, in fact, the work they did probably stopped it from going any worse.
Okay. And when, do we know when we'll hear about this grant?
I haven't heard, I'm believing it'll be sometime around September, or August or September, which is after the CFA funding applications, which are due now in June.
And this $30,000 grant is through the CFA?
Yeah, that's,
Is that what you said?
yeah, that's one of the possibilities through the CFA. And with regards to the report that we wrote, this preliminary engineering report can be leveraged for other sources, because this was a pretty significant effort as far as analyzing the data, creating the report, applying under the, this application was much more complicated than the CFA application is. So the leveraging of this data and this report and this work into a CFA application would be much less of an expense. I believe this one was contracted at, I think it was $18,000 to regurgitate the data and the report and attach it to another application for the funding source would be like a $2,000 to $3,000 lift for the CFA process, as opposed to the larger lift that it was to generate the initial report.
The other thing is that if, a lot of the issues that we had for Hurricane Irene, or any time there's a heavy rain, everybody knows how much stormwater is affecting our neighborhoods. And this is the first step. And during New York Rising, we're encouraged to reach out for other sources of funding for the projects that we're looking at. And we can basically use this to also, like I said, CFA, we have the $3 million. And I'm hoping to be able to tackle all the issues that have to do with stormwater throughout the town by going from issue to issue with this kind of data to be able to leverage those.
Right, because we not only have the data from this study and this report, but we also have the data and the analysis that we did through the funding program for the water project and the others. We've been through the EFC hardship applications, and the data that was used for the water project can subsequently be leveraged into and reused for this project without going out and redoing all of that work. So we can sort of leverage the work that we've been doing over the last, 1 to 3 or more years, and then pursue other funding sources as it's applicable towards the newer grant programs. And one of the benefits and one of the criteria, it may not be listed as an official criteria, but when the community is using the money and progressing the projects and the stuff is actually moving forward, then leveraging that into newer grants is much easier than some instances in some municipalities where I've worked, where the municipality gets the grant, but then they never borrow the money to advance the project, or they back out and go, gee, we don't know where their 20% match is coming from, so they don't proceed with the project, and then it makes it much harder for them to go back to the state agencies to ask for more. But since you are moving forward with the water project, you've moved forward with other projects that you've done, it puts you in a better position, and especially in conjunction with the leveraging of other funding sources.
Yeah, I mean,
To pursue
I
these
can't be
grants.
sure because we're still learning about New York Rising as we go forward. It's, you know, it's a learning process, but we've been told that we'll be able to leverage the financing with the other projects. So if you have a project like this, we can use the funding for New York Rising towards this, and then we don't, you know, maybe we won't have to borrow money because we'll be able to use that funding.
Right,
Is that the way you understand it, Ken?
The one point that I would like to put out, though, there may be instances where most of these programs are reimbursement type of programs, so you may be in a situation of short-term borrowing through the issuance of ban, so that you have the cash and the capital. And with larger projects, for instance, I was involved in one in Newburgh where it was a $12 million project, and it was an era money project. We had like $9 million of federal money, but we had to fund the construction up front. And there we did a cash flow analysis to see how far ahead we would be of the reimbursements. So we ended up borrowing about $4.3 million to provide the cash, and then the reimbursements started coming in, and that $4.3 million short-term borrow was enough to carry the $12 million project because the reimbursements were there. It forces you to keep, you know, a very active and progressive management of the project so that the reimbursements get submitted timely. But really, that's the only way that they'll ever get submitted, because if you get behind on it, it gets put in a box, and you wouldn't be. There's a lot of municipalities that just have open boxes and open projects, and a lot of reimbursements that they're eligible for that they just haven't submitted on because they didn't manage the project through completion. So we've been there and we've done that with regards to the, you know, we've got a pretty good track record over the last 3 years with the consolidated funding application. I can't remember the number of communities, but we've gotten slightly over $5 million worth of grant money through the consolidated funding application for, I believe it was like 18 or 23 communities throughout the state.
And the other thing I just want to mention is, you know, previously, the previous town board tried to put forward a sewer treatment rebuild, and that didn't go through, and it's still on the list, but it's not very high on the list.
Right.
And I also look at this as a way to improve the efficiency of the sewer treatment plant so that we don't have to go out to build a new sewer treatment plant, so.
I've got a question, because, so we have one grant application in, and if we were to pursue this other option through the CFA, this is the same granting agency. How do we
It's a
manage?
different agency.
It's the same state agency, but it's a different
program.
funding source and a different funding program.
What happened? Is there a penalty for doing that? Is there a, what happens if we win twice? How do we?
They would allocate enough that we would know from this, I'm getting my acronyms right now, the Storm Mitigation Loan Program.
Right.
We'll have those answers in September.
Right.
That'd be the same time that they're analyzing the projects for the consolidated funding application, which they will be announcing sometime, I would guess, within the last 2 weeks of October, would make the strategically cynical, logical schedule for the election.
So,
I didn't say that. I may have implied that.
so this would be a $1,000 to $2,000 investment to hedge our bet.
To leverage it into another
Right.
round. And we're currently analyzing the applications. Last year, the applications were in a, you know, the engineering planning grant application is much less complex and sophisticated because it's smaller amounts of money. For populations, I believe it's under 50,000 or 40,000, it's a $30,000 grant. For populations over that, it's a $50,000 grant. And the application is relatively straightforward, and we already have compiled the data. So those grants, you know, we're looking at the applications to make sure nothing has changed, you know, because we're in the process of drafting proposals, and we're trying to make sure we don't, you know, put a $2,000 price tag on a $6,000 lift. But they seem to be rather consistent with before. And some of the CDBG grants that are very complicated, those are a $50,000 or $60,000 lift, you know, even if you have the data. So they vary depending upon, but those grants are also in the millions of dollars. So it's a relatively simple process to move this forward and try to go for the other funding source. Although it won't necessarily pay for the entire project, it would be a $30,000 trimming off the top of that.
And if we did get it through this first program we applied for, it's part of the consolidated funding application, has this and other projects rolled in.
Well, this project is gone through EFC. But if we go through consolidated funding and use just this project again, I'm looking at what other
Yeah,
stormwater
we wouldn't
issues
use
too.
just this, right?
Right.
Right, and what we would do there is we would look at the ways to tie the report. We may actually make modifications and amendments to the report to make the connection with the other projects that are related to New York Rising, so that we can show the connection either in the application itself, or we can modify and amend the report to show the connection and how this would leverage other investments and other grant projects or funded projects. Like if you get funding for a stormwater project, which we can show relates to, but doesn't solve the entire problem here, which we can. We've shown that there is the inflow, but we've also showed that there's an infiltration issue, which will be separate from the stormwater management project. So if we can show that one will lead to the betterment of the other project, then that's how we would make the connection and pursue funding for both projects, either through the same program or through two separate programs. And we would sit down and meet and determine how the application packages and how the application form and format. And EFC's been pretty good to work with regards to how to structure the application. They're a pretty good agency with that regard. There's other strings that come with the money that make the projects more expensive, and there's a lot of administrative burden that comes with their money. But when it comes with 0% interest and it comes with principal reduction off the top, then it makes it worth that extra administrative effort.
And the other thing is, the more projects that we can do with other funding, the more New York Rising projects we hope can come up the list. So if you have a way to get funding from other sources, you're getting more consideration because it's a New York Rising project, and then other projects that you've identified through New York Rising can come to the top of them. If you still have money. Is there any other input you want to say?
No,
Well, we're gonna go
I think
right
we're on the
into
right track, with regard to tying this into the New York Rising opportunities. The one thing you didn't mention is there's another round of funding coming down the pike too,
Yeah.
that hopefully will be in line to apply for, and maybe be situated a little bit better time-wise, certainly.
Right. We certainly look at, a lot of what our company does. We're a very multidisciplined firm from the engineering side.
Yeah.
But we also have some very experienced planners and grant writers. And in fact, my responsibilities now evolve from not only the engineering management side, but I'm also managing 5 individuals that are in the strategic planning and development group, which does a lot of municipal work with regards to planning board reviews and sustainable types of community planning. And I have a planner, a landscape architect who's also a planner, entry-level engineer, experienced engineer, and then we've also got an experienced grant writer that works closely with the group. So we're not only do we do the engineering work, but we bring the engineering plus to the table. And you probably have heard Glenn be here before using the engineering plus term, but it sounds kind of quirky, but yet it really describes what we can bring to the table. And we're constantly reading, looking for the funding sources. In fact, I believe Glenn's is involved in one of the presentations at one of the seminars about the CFA application process. We not only apply for them, but we also help explain how this process works to other municipalities.
I've heard him do that one.
Yeah.
So will you be coming back to the board with a proposal?
If that's your desire, we can put together a quick letter proposal outlining the cost of the CFA process. It'll probably be in that $2,000 to $3,000 range. We'll take a close look. I know that one of our younger planners was looking at the applications when I left the office yesterday afternoon. So as long as he confirms that the application hasn't changed any, we can put it together for a relatively, much less amount of money than the original application for this process.
Yes, we'll be talking about that.
Well, we're going to talk about,
We're going to talk about CFA a
yeah,
little bit.
I just like the way, just exclusive to this, I think it's money well spent, because this CFA that we've been talking about, excuse me, the applications are unbelievably complex to put together, and Gene knows it better than probably anybody in this room. And we're on a time frame, so I think the cutoff is the end of
It's June
It's
15th.
June 15th. So we've really got just a couple of weeks to get an incredible amount of information together to apply for these CFA grants, number one. And then prior to that, you know, with regard as it applies to the New York Rising projects that we have proposed, is to, you know, go through the CFA grants that are out there, and by way of really a website or you know, the resources that they've given us. And basically, here you go, look for the funding opportunities and apply for them. And by the way, you only got a couple of weeks. So it's scrambling around. So I think the best approach at this point is to you know, go with this as it applies to, you know, it'll definitely help this grant application and certainly open up opportunities down the road for additional projects that we've identified through New York Rising. And then I'd go a step further to say that, you know, depending on how your services are put together and how everything comes out and the end result, it might be smart to move forward to utilize the grant writing opportunities, you know, for future CFA applications. Because quite honestly, the you know, just specific to, and I'm not talking for you, but specific to the pool application, this lady put in literally hundreds of hours to put it all together, and that's only one application. So we have so many projects going on in town at the same time, you know, to say, hey, there's an opportunity through CFA or through CBGB. I said that wrong.
It's a great plan.
I just saw that.
I've heard a lot of bad ones on that.
No, that's my other one. On the pension, there's a federal program, CBGB, that takes over pension funds and goes there, but that's a whole other subject. But anyway, it's a complex thing out there, and I believe this is the way to go on this, and certainly look to utilize your services perhaps moving forward.
Yeah, and when we had the New York Rising meeting this week, and you know, really what was, you know, basically, you know, over and over, they just said, you gotta go out and apply for whatever you can get for CFA. And I'm like, we have a month to do this, and knowing how complicated, how much work it is, I mean, basically, it's just a huge amount of work, not just for one, but for whatever other ones we have. Plus, you're kind of competing against yourself, you know, for the different projects.
In some instances you
But
are, but there's other
would-
funding sources.
Right,
You know,
right.
DEC
And I
puts
do
in,
think
SHPO puts in,
it
some,
makes
you know,
sense.
there's
It
different
makes sense
agencies.
because we have so many multiple stormwater issues. And if we can do something that is really about going after monies for all stormwater, though clearly our stormwater mitigation issues came to the top for New York Rising, I still think that we need to look at what other funding. They've encouraged us to go after CFA for other projects, but that means you gotta come up with matching funds, and you gotta come up with, you know, any engineering costs, and you don't have that. You put an application in without any engineering, and it's a very weak application, and that was my concern, because you don't have anything to back it up with. Even if it's New York Rising, they say it comes to the top, you know, there's not enough information for them to make a decision that it's a good application or a good project.
Right, it's been our experience that by the time the applications hit the street, it's too late to start thinking of applying for it. It's too late to look for what you're going to require. The experience that we've had and the successes that we've had are when we are working for a municipality and the project is taking shape, and we have a preliminary engineering report, or we have some preliminary studies that have been done, so we know how the project and how the scope of the project is coming together. Then you're in a better position to hit that 45 to 60-day window between the time the applications are announced and the time that the deadlines come around. And the communities that are successful, and especially the first few years, were the communities where the grant application was for the final $2 million of the project rather than the full $2 million project to do a $2 million project. And so the leveraging of the work that you've done, or the ongoing efforts toward the grant process, we like to look at it. And I don't mean to sound like I'm marketing the services on an annual basis, but the communities that are really working on it on an annual basis toward next year's funding rounds. So even if the New York Rising projects are unsuccessful this time, the work that you've put into that can then position you for a CFA application in the next round, where you will have had some of the preliminary engineering work. Well, you've had time to do it. You've had time to budget to do that work. And it's been my experience with all of the grant programs is that the communities that put the more effort up front are the ones that are more successful coming out the back with the bigger amounts of money, whether it's a highway project or stormwater project or any other. It's a matter of putting a good effort into the application on a sustained basis rather than a quick basis.
And two examples of that is when we went to the New York, Albany to listen to the governor and look at all the projects throughout the state that were New York Rising. The ones that got the bonuses and the ones that were flagged as good projects were the ones that started already. They didn't wait for their, for their New York Rising awards or their money. They started working on projects right away and coming up with some ideas, so they were ahead of the game. And this does, I think, give us a little bit of a step in the right direction to be a little bit ahead of everything that's going on. So when we were looking at this, well, do we wait to see if New York Rising picks this project, or do we go ahead and start the process? And that's what we did. We started the process. So I think it gives us a little boost in that respect. Plus, after, the two big grants we got last year was the pool and the shared services, and both of those were after I did a pool and shared service. So I got denied for the first round, and you didn't say, oh, well, we didn't get it, we're not going to get it. We went right back and did it again, and especially, now we have more documentation.
You get feedback too, right?
And then you get feedback.
Yes.
Do we have any other CFA projects on the front burner for this round?
To tell you the truth, yesterday was New York Rising, and I was not going to do any CFA because I'm managing 5 grants right now. So managing 5 grants and getting them processed is a huge amount of work too. So I said, I don't think I can physically, stay up that many hours.
I'm doing the solar permit.
Yes. And thank you. But I also said, okay, what do we have to do? Because I don't want something to pass. I don't want us to pass up some opportunities where they're telling us yesterday, if it's a New York Rising project, you should go after CFA because you're going to be at the top consideration. So, what I'm doing tonight, and you'll see on the list, we're going to do a boilerplate CFA application approval, and I'm going to have to, come up with some way for us to figure out which ones we want to do or how we want to go forward. Because I think, this next week, I'm just going to have to really look at everything and see which makes the most sense. I think we should go after the stormwater mitigation, and I think we need to see what other projects on the list make sense for CFA.
Okay. Well, you can send things around by email. And we can,
Yeah,
help you.
we'll get a consensus, but we'll get our approval tonight. But basically, that's what we're going to have to do. So.
Well, right, because by the resolution of that nature tonight won't actually commit you to the application, because you'll need another seeker process and/or resolutions authorizing the submission of the application at a later date anyway, so you're not really.
My concern was we'd have enough meetings between one
It's a very hard,
step to the other, so we had to do something tonight to just get the ball rolling.
Right, and I'd be glad too to take a look at your list and see what fits into what types of programs, because we've had people studying the programs since the day before they came out to see what money would fit what types of projects.
Okay.
But to quantify the level of effort, we're looking at the easiest lifts on these CFA grants that are typically a 20-hour type of effort, even if you have the data together. And the outside end of that, we're looking at $80 to $100 on the more complicated, or $80 to $100 on the more complicated grants.
Yeah, I hear you.
So
I do have a question, concern. Jean mentioned we can be competing against ourselves, and one of the projects is to address the drainage at Washington Park, and I mean that's a stormwater issue. I would assume that that's the same funding source as this project, or would
It's
be
a little
the same.
different because this is about the infiltration to the sewer district. Some of the water does not go to the sewer district, but some of it does. So we have some stormwater we're going to identify that's coming, that's infiltrating the sewer district. Other stormwater is just flooding the streets or flooding neighborhoods or whatever. So I feel like stormwater is our big issue right now. We want to look at, with the New York Rising and the, going after the issue of infiltration, and at the same time, we should be able to tackle the neighborhoods that are getting flooded. Yeah. So, we got neighborhoods that are flooding, especially around, around Washington Park, that are flooding on a regular basis every time there's a storm. So you got
And the issue of competing against yourself is, it's rather limited because you're not competing. The CFA application has taken all of the money that used to be available through all of the agencies that used to have individual processes and combined them into one centralized hub for the application itself. So there's money from the State Historic Preservation Office that would be, we could apply for a trail project. You could also, there's other DEC money that's going toward this particular one would fit nicely into the engineering planning grant, which is limited. It's typically a well-funded pool because they want people to start the process of creating and defining your project, and that would make it more then applicable to apply for a Department of State grant or another type of DEC money to actually go build the project. And now those are typically larger grants, which are a little bit more competitive. And so you could be competing, although it would appear that you're against yourself. If you have a trail project, you'll be competing against other trails and other historic preservation projects. If you have a sewer project, you'll be creating.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right. My question is
you
that
probably
we have
won't-
2 stormwater projects, at least.
Yeah, but the trick there though is to show how they relate to one another and can leverage off of each other. In fact, we had one in the city of Newburgh. One of the applications was a private developer applied for a $2.5 million grant. The city applied for a $750,000 or $800,000 grant to build the infrastructure to serve the development, as well as an adjoining lot that would be created. And then the commercial developer had applied for the $2.5 million, and those were ushered through and positioned as priority projects at the regional level. And then the city got the grant for the infrastructure, and then now that the project and planning of the commercial structure is better, he's more positioned now to go back in this year, and actually, so he was ahead of himself on that one. Likewise, we were ahead of ourselves with the trail project last year, because it's really a $9 million sewer project, but in creating the sewer project, we're creating this pathway through the woods where everybody's always wanted to put a trail along the stream. So we submitted a trail application, and SHPO said, well, it's a good project and it's a good application, but you're not ready to build it tomorrow because you got to build your sewer first. So the sewers in the dam, we're breaching a dam and rebuilding a sewer line. So that'll happen this year and next year, and then we'll be better positioned to add the trail money and the kiosks and all of the wayfinding stuff for the trail project, after the sewer has been constructed. So they do look at whether you're on the right schedule, and this type of work is on the right schedule because you're actually now starting to define the project that you need to fix your problem. Likewise with the stormwater stuff. So I think your timing is right to chase those pools of money, whether it's the New York Rising and especially the CFA with the planning grant.
Any other questions? Thank you, Greg.
Okay. Do you want me to stick around for the conversation on CFA, or think we pretty well covered it?
I think we're okay. Yes, Susan?
I have a question about the sewer project specifically, which is that I gather that this does not involve replacing the sewers, but if you're going to be fixing them in some way, or, lining them, or addressing some of the places where you see infiltration, how many years out do you think that would take us? In other words, when's the next round of, how do you think about it? You think about a decade or 2 decades, or, 5 years, or what?
The types of repair work we would do range from spot repairs that are done with no excavation to replacement of an entire block. And it basically depends upon the condition of the pipe when it's there. If the pipe is cracked but the structural shape is still good, we can line it and still maintain the integrity of the pipe. The pipe lining systems that we put actually are structurally sound and create a pipe of its own. So they don't need the structural stability of the surrounding pipe, but they need a space to install the new pipe. So if the pipe is collapsed in on itself and there's no way to physically go through the pipe, then we have to dig it up. And so the fixes range depending on what we find, from total excavation and replacement with a whole new pipe to spot repairs that we can do, with very minimal intrusion to the ground surface.
I just have one other question. How sure are you that it's about broken or damaged pipes as opposed to infiltration from sources that shouldn't be there, and water that just kind of like goes to the, follows the pipe? I don't know that Terry's ever really said he's been concerned about broken pipes before, have you?
213 would be my only concern.
Yeah, the pipe system that you have here it's been a pretty reliable type of pipe, and the areas that that you have dug it up for obstructions or other problems. And Terry, I don't mean to speak for you, but the conversations we've had are that the pipe itself is typically in pretty good structural condition. So when the pipe, with that particular type of pipe, it doesn't tend to collapse on itself. The old concrete pipe used to just deteriorate and just crumble apart. But this is one of the earlier stages of plastic pipe systems, and it tends to stay sound as a pipe section. But as the earth moves, the joints pull apart, and then the water goes through there.
Concerned where the earth is moving, but for the most part, it sounds like most of our issue is about infiltration from water that's not supposed to be going that way, right?
You know, through joints, mainly manholes, I would say, you know, they're built with basically a liner, every section has a seal in it that's 30+ years now, you know.
Yep.
Cars in it, and that seal is deteriorating, now groundwater can literally get into the section.
How many manholes are there?
We're working on 77, I believe.
Let's see. No, I've kind of broken into numbers of days rather than numbers of manholes, I'm sorry. I think it's in that 70 to 80 range though. And as far as the timeline goes, the funding that we do for these types of projects and for the construction of them especially are typically, they allow us to bond them for up to 20 or 30 years. So that's the expected life expectancy of the repair or the replacement would be of the full-fledged system type of lifespan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next thing is the workforce housing agreement, HRVR. You guys had a chance to review it?
I had a chance to look at
Bless
it
you.
this afternoon, not extensively.
I have not had any time to really review these today. Just got them this morning. I took a quick look at the local sourcing agreement, but not enough to ask informed questions.
Hope we have an opportunity to read over both agreements and have a spirited discussion next week, I guess.
Yep.
Um,
Okay, so,
I just want to say, I read both agreements, and specific to the local sourcing agreement, I encourage my colleagues to read this agreement, and I'd be interested in your feedback next week, because as a labor leader in this valley, this is unprecedented to have a local sourcing agreement, and I'll just leave it at that. You know, I think that it's going to be a very unique thing that we're talking about here moving forward, and I'm kind of excited about it. And my colleagues in the labor movement are as well. So I guess we'll have a conversation next week about that.
yeah, and I'll just say that, you know, it was a very, it was a really good sit-down with Tim, and we spent a lot of time on this, and really, you know, looked at all the ways that we can make it the best agreement possible that would benefit this community. This is really an agreement that's going to benefit the Rosendale residents, people in our community and their surrounding communities. It basically works as a circular, if you live in Rosendale, you have preference for sourcing or for jobs, and it works, and it's really, I was very, very happy to work with Tim on this, and we were both excited as we were working on it. It's just a good feeling to see. And I don't think we had one problem with going forward and making this something that we thought was good for both the development and also for the community. I mean, this is really looking out for our economic welfare, and it's looking out for, it's basically helping with the future of Rosendale and our surrounding communities. And like Ken said, it's unprecedented. We can't even find another agreement similar to it to compare it to.
How many times have we gone throughout this valley and seen a project being built? Few and far between as they've been in the recent future or recent past. But we see a project being built, and you see that the workers on that project are all from out of state. This is a step forward to make sure that doesn't happen, to make sure the people that live in this community have an opportunity to reap the benefits of this project. So it's just,
I
it's
think,
unprecedented.
I think that after all this is finalized, you're gonna have every other town in New York State calling for a copy. So they can.
Yeah, no, I think this is the local sourcing, that was, you know, a big concern and interest of mine, and I'm excited about this agreement. I'm just kind of curious, did you share this, the actual draft,
No.
or just discussions with other
Just-
labor leaders?
I know that the project has had some discussions with some labor leaders throughout the valley and in our coffee clutches. The subject has come up. The specifics of the agreement, no. But just the prospect of having an agreement like this, where there's, from the very beginning, a dialogue between the developer and the unions. And this doesn't even, it's not exclusive to the unions either. This is local sourcing, meaning not just unions, but local workers. Local workers, and there's a mechanism in there to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to have a fair shot at employment. Am I right, Tim?
Yes, I mean, if I get a chance to say anything about that,
You're more than welcome to say
I'm very excited. I also share the excitement. This is, you know, I think for the community that has expressed concerns over the past years around the project, and some of those concerns have been ones of, it sounds good, but how do we know it's going to happen? This is the most significant, I mean, aside from the easement being in place and the rail trail being open, this is the most significant next one that really means something to the community. We asked for assistance in finding a template to start from. Couldn't find one, so we worked very hard to put this together. Get a chance to read it. It makes some very strong and real commitments to this tiers, starting with Rosendale out to the Hudson Valley, as local, you know, preferences to local for employees, contracts for construction, materials, supplies in the future for the resort. We're eager to be here tonight for this because, you know, this is something that we've talked about from the beginning, and it's just now a binding legal agreement with the town that takes the secret commitments and puts them into a document. Then we can say, look, we meant it, and here it is, and we look forward to your vote next week on this. We'd love to be able to get, you know, get this done. And I think it's a really big deal.
As one of many people that said this looks good, and how do we know it's really going to happen? I was very heartened to see under the administration section the creation of a local sourcing council that would have representation from both sides and from the community. Was also interested to see the breakout in terms of percentages from each or within the concentric circles of local, what the ideal quantity would be, as well as at one point you quantify what feasibility is I think in the 15%. If the local provider is within a certain percentage of the non-local provider, the local would still be preferred. I was very heartened to see that level of specificity. Thank you.
Maybe I could just explain that one little bit, right? So the local sourcing agreement is a lot of stuff in here, but it basically says we give preference to local, which is defined in its first instance as the community of Rosendale. The next preference is Ulster County. And then the third preference, which is still local, is the Hudson Valley, which is defined as those counties. So after that, you're not local. We are trying to source to high goals, 75% in most cases, from local, from those three rings. Within those rings, if there's a bid for, say, demolition, and there's a Rosendale bid and an Ulster County bid, if they're equal, and equal is subject to us, then we should choose the Rosendale one. If they're equal and the Rosendale one is, I think it's actually 5% more expensive, we should still go with the Rosendale one. So there's an allowance for, you can check the number, Chris, I can't remember right off the top of my head.
5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. So we're really trying to give the Rosendale folks, or, you know, from tier to tier, a strong preference. And then there's other language in there to protect, protect the community. So it's meaningful. We can't find one that's been done like this. We think it's groundbreaking, and again, we'd be very happy when the board votes for this.
I had one quick question on the workforce housing agreement. Understanding this is very early on in the process, I don't know if you have the answer yet, but I was looking at limitations. Essentially was wondering what the application process is. That this housing is open to employees and non-employees. Ultimately, it's up to the landowner's discretion as to whom they accept. Is there an open application process that the public would put in and say, I'd like to live here, or do you have a sense of how that process works at this point?
Just in broad brushstrokes, I mean, the workforce housing units are rental units, and so they'd be rented on an application basis, open to anybody. There's eligibility criteria that you have to meet, which is basically around the area median income criteria, but anybody could apply.
And again, I'll say, I saw that you reached out to the criteria they have to meet is based on county data, that you're going outside for government data to establish that criteria.
Well, what we did was we talked to folks who do affordable housing day in and day out and got their help. And this is what, what we came, away with was, the criteria and using HUD data and all these formulas that affordable housing specialists use. So that's what it's based on. But in terms of who and how, it's open to anybody, and it's like being a landlord. You rent it to, you have an application process.
Tim, is there a reason why you'd want to call it workforce housing as opposed to affordable housing, since it is open to anyone in the community, and you're not giving preference to employees necessarily, and trying to hire locally as much as possible?
The workforce doesn't mean the work people in that community. The term workforce is for people that are working.
Okay, so it's not workforce for the workforce.
It's not Section 8 housing,
You
it's
have
not
the actual
subsidized
term,
housing.
you have the definition of that term. It doesn't mean workforce. Workforce is just a term.
Right.
Okay, I thought it meant
Of the-
applied
No.
to employees of the project. Okay.
Working people that fall into the category of the
As
percentages.
opposed to people that aren't working, not people that are working for them.
Okay. I look forward to reading this week.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Anybody else? We're good? Jen is going to present the community choice aggregation in New York State. She's been working on with the, what's the name of your group there?
Citizens for Local Power.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I want to just speak for a few minutes about a bill that is before the state legislature that would enable community choice aggregation in New York State, known as CCA for short. It's my hope that this board will agree to provide a letter of support for this legislation, which has been introduced by our Assembly member, Assemblyman Cahill, and is sponsored in the Senate by Senator Kevin Parker. And I just wanted to give first a little context for it, which will help you understand what it is. None of us really have any control over where we source our energy from. We pay Central Hudson, most of us pay for Central Hudson to source it for us, or one of these ESCO companies. I'm sure everyone's received many calls from these companies looking for your business. Most of it is, most of our energy is fossil fuel based still, and we've all experienced, especially this past year, how vulnerable we are to the volatility of fossil fuel prices with the huge winter spike in natural gas prices, which sent electricity through the roof. And now this summer, because it's predicted to be such a hot summer, the prices are already projected to be 20% higher this summer due to a summer spike in electricity. So, we have huge economic concerns related to energy and energy sourcing over which we don't have a lot of control. We also have huge environmental concerns. This board voted to ban fracking, I guess, when was that, 2 years ago? Which was a great thing. But this New York State is looking to expand natural gas use, which is going to increase the pressure to frack in New York State. And in fact, I was pretty disappointed to see that Senator Schumer has come out supporting fracking if the governor gives the go-ahead. We know in our community, here in Rosendale and in other communities, that the best way to address climate change, the best way to reduce our vulnerability to the volatility of fossil fuel prices is to ramp up our use of renewable energy and to ramp down demand through greater efficiency. But we don't really have all the tools that we could use at the local level to achieve that. And this is where community choice aggregation comes in. It gives communities greater control over energy decision-making by allowing municipalities to aggregate the demand for the load, say the electricity load of ratepayers within their borders, and negotiate agreements directly with energy suppliers. And it's a choice-based model. It's voluntary. Residents or businesses don't have to participate. They can opt out and continue to continue to get their power through Central Hudson or an ESCO or whatever. But in New York, in the country, in 6 other states, CCAs have been around for 20 years, and most of the community members stick with the CCAs because of the benefits they provide. They are often able to get a better price for energy than their utilities, and they're able to get a better mix of energy sources from their a more diverse portfolio. So they have a greener energy supply, a more diverse energy supply. In California, CCAs are investing directly in renewable generation. In Massachusetts, they are overseeing energy efficiency programs in their communities. And all of these programs are generating local jobs. They're lowering bills for consumers, and they are more sustainable and better for the environment and decrease the pressure to frack. So it's a great thing. It would be a great thing for New York State. New York State is a municipal home rule state, but we don't have the tools in the energy area to really realize the benefits of municipal home rule. So we have this enabling legislation at the state level. There is a competing bill before the legislature that has been put forward by the chair of the Energy Committee in the Assembly that's just for Westchester. The chair of the Energy Committee happens to be from Westchester, and it would, deny the benefits of this to other communities who would be interested in pursuing it in the state for many years to come. And it's a weaker bill than the Cahill-Parker bill. I've included in the folders are some background information on community choice aggregation and its benefits, and a draft letter of support if it would go to the legislature's leadership. And the point is to demonstrate that there is interest in having these sorts of tools available, or community choice aggregation available elsewhere in the state and not just in Westchester.
And
So-
how do you feel it stands right now? Do you feel it has a chance of passing?
It's going to be tough with the,
You
in
have
the
an idea who else
assembly?
supports it, or?
Yeah, we do have, there are additional sponsors in the assembly, Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett, and Duchess is a co-sponsor, Assemblyman Sweeney, who's the chair of the Environmental Conservation Committee in the Assembly, is a co-sponsor, and, every legislator we have met with has been interested and actually pretty favorable to it, I would say. We're right now, it's funny because just by coincidence, we have this correspondence from the Public Service Commission, but this time is really right in the state because the Public Service Commission itself, it's under a new chair, Audrey Zibbelman, and NYSERDA also. Everyone is starting to look at new, sort of more localized community approaches to dealing with energy because the current, the status quo has not been working.
Well, the question is too, if it did pass legislation, how successful do you think it'll be to get companies to invest and do the other types of energy sources? I mean, do you see that there are groups ready to go, that they're interested in investing in doing this?
Well, this would be, so just to give you an example of how it might work, like maybe, say Rosendale might want to do this with a few municipalities. The bigger the CCA, the more leverage you have in a contract. And, they're often countywide and other, but not necessarily, they're also small communities too. Typically, they start out negotiating a contract with an ESCO,
So it
with an energy supply.
It wouldn't be individual choices, it'd be community choice.
Yeah, and you have, residents can opt out and just stick with what they have, or they can go with participating in the CCA. But people have not, as I said, opted out because it's been a better deal generally sticking with the CCA.
Would it be up to the municipality to sign people up or to get them enrolled, if you will?
It would be by resolution, and yeah, they're structured differently in different states and in different communities within different states. So it can go from I think the sort of lowest effort way of working through an ESCO and having them do a lot of the administration. You also can, so utilities collect, you pay a charge each month for Central Hudson to source your energy for you. That goes to the CCA, or CCAs can actually charge even less and
So we
still
have to
have a
administer
revenue
it too
stream.
then.
You could, or it depends, yes, I mean, ultimately, to reap the full benefits of it, but often what happens is they evolve over time and take on more as there's more experience over time. But there's actually a long record of experience to draw on now.
And
It's
then
like 20 years of experience.
As that happens, does the administration of the CCA take on a workforce, and is there actually people that would work for the CCA, and part of that would be payroll and
In
sustain-
Massachusetts, they have a more extensive program because they actually collect the system benefits charge. In their CCA enabling legislation allows, the system benefits charge on your utility is what funds NYSERDA, and it's what funds Central Hudson's energy efficiency programs. In Massachusetts, the CCA, actually in California too, they can, if they wish, they can collect that system's benefit charge and administer it locally. The discussions we've been having is more, NYSERDA continues to get that money, but they assist communities at the local level in implementing programs. The municipalities and their volunteer boards have a huge advantage over NYSERDA in that they're in their community. They know how to, they know where the biggest demand is. And and they, they have their boots on the ground in the community, so we'll do a better job ultimately of reducing the costs, energy costs for their ratepayers by.
So basically, right now, this is just a request to support the legislation to allow a CCA to be created in your community if you want.
Yes.
And then we would have to make a decision, but based on more information on whether we want it to be part of that.
Yes, you don't have to, this is not saying that you're going to start a CCA, it's saying that you
I mean,
support,
it
you
seems a lot
support
more
it as a
complicated.
tool in the state. And, it's going to.
So the actual implementation is a ways off. The law's got to be passed.
You have to have the enabling legislation first, yeah.
And then an infrastructure set up to,
Yeah, I mean,
Administer and
in some
regulate.
communities, they just have, they'll hire a consultant to do, that's often.
Or if you're gonna
they'll
have
go that
multiple
route.
communities that try to do it together,
Right.
then it makes more sense.
Sometimes the county can, provides administrative support.
Have you
It's very
approached the
fluid
county
and
to do?
different in different
Have you
places.
approached the county to do this?
We have the actual, we've talked, the county's been very supportive and actually included in their comments to the FERC on the new capacity zone, a recommendation to support CCA and as an alternative way of dealing.
As long as I don't get 50 calls a month.
Right.
You
No,
know,
you won't get
this-
50 calls. But at this point, again, it's just enabling legislation and.
This whole topic, it's funny that it's presented tonight because I don't know a lot about it. When it comes to large government control, things like this, it's like I'm afraid to deal with. But where I work, I get all the inside information because the people I work with follow the government. Did you ever hear of Ambit?
Mhm.
Now, I signed up for that months ago. I researched it, a lot of the guys did. And when these electric bills came in and everybody got these crazy bills, mine didn't go up that much. Now, I just got the inside scoop yesterday that Ambit is starting to creep up now to go with Northeast Power, which I left all the information for my wife to sign up. I don't know a lot about this topic,
Right.
and like I said, when it comes to government control, like the prison where I work at, for an example, our electric bill runs roughly $19,000 a month. Well, when we had that month where it really surged, $65,000, $19,000. So I'm really having a hard time understanding, and it's always, what's the justification for it? It was colder, it was hotter, the birds flew to the north and then it came back. It just, sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Well, ultimately, there's a lot of, actually, there's some investigations now into energy market manipulation by companies.
Price gouging.
Yes, price gouging, and it's not just strictly supply and demand this past winter price spike. But a main goal of CCA is to try to get to the place where we are not getting through state, through other means, which is to really, truly diversify our energy portfolio. Because right now, we are really vulnerable to, and we're becoming increasingly vulnerable as natural gas becomes a larger and larger component of the mix. It's just a fact that fossil fuel prices are volatile. So when you expand the renewable component of your energy supply, you're providing a layer of insulation to that volatility because that is a constant.
Well,
It's free. It's free once you.
I'm just gonna say, always I think it's good to have choice, give people choices. And I think it's good to try to find a way to save money and to have more green energy. So I'll make a recommendation to the board that we, as long as we're not committing to anything at this point, and we're just supporting the legislation, I think we should support the writing of the letter. If the board, if I could just take a consensus, and we'll do a resolution next week.
I think it's great that you put all this work into it, and I'm sure it was a lot of time. And then, it's like the government knows, okay, they all went to the left, now we're gonna pull them to the right. So the next thing, you know what I'm saying? But for people to save money in simplest form, and I've been fortunate with this Ambit, I signed on, it was cheaper now northeast. Because right now, I think people are just mostly concerned about sustainability to their wallet. And
But actually, if I could address that point, so there's not a lot of transparency in that they're not well regulated, those ESCO those companies, energy supply companies, and there's just not a lot of good information out there on them. And the one study that was done, there was one service area upstate where there was data collected on those companies, and in 82% of the cases, they did not have a lower price than the utilities. And for low wage earners and people on fixed incomes, they were targeted, and their prices were even higher.
And they call a million times and they tell you they're gonna save you money.
Yeah, and you probably get questions all the time from, I know I get questions a lot from people in the community because they're getting all of these calls. And another benefit of CCAs is it's a completely public and transparent process.
The good thing is if the community is, if the town is running it or the county is running it or having some input, we have a little bit more connection to what's going on, so I think.
Yeah, and it's an
I think we
educational
need to know more about it if it does pass legislation before. There's a lot of details I'm sure that have to be reviewed. But I'm okay with, writing a letter of support because I think it's a good thing to have that choice. So, yes?
yeah, I have,
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
we're not concrete into anything,
No, we're just supporting the legislation to,
right? And it's obviously something that we're all following very closely because of our bills, our environment. I mean, everything kind of circles around this.
okay, well.
Do you want me to make a motion, or do you?
We don't need to, because we'll just
Okay.
do a resolution next week, but
Okay.
what I want to know is the best way to do it to actually use your form letter, or do you think we need to be more specific for Rosendale?
I think a letter is fine, or,
This
as
letter?
opposed to a resolution.
No, this is a letter that you
Yeah,
have
a
here.
letter,
This
yeah.
letter,
On town letterhead from the board, I think, to,
and we'll do a resolution to write the letter.
Incorporate that into
Yeah.
the resolution.
yeah, that
Okay.
would be great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bill?
I'd like you to take the vendor application to the end of the graph and replace them with this one.
What page is this?
It should be near the end, the vendor application. It should be near the very end.
So Bill, right off the bat, I'm just going to make a formal request
Okay.
that the town of Rosendale has a place for Tara to set up her booth.
That's already been conveyed.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Now,
How come we don't have a dunking booth? How come we don't have a dunking booth? I would volunteer. I volunteer.
We actually want people to mull around and go to the other vendors instead of knocking us on the wall.
Are you volunteering for this?
No,
Right.
I wasn't
They're
volunteering.
worried about losing money.
Yes.
I just wanted to plug the board on
Supporting that enabling legislation because, the PSC saw fit to allow our public utility to be sold to a foreign-owned company. And this situation with our local power and the cost of local energy is only going to get worse as a result of that, in my opinion. So this, if this legislation is lucky enough to pass, it'll allow communities around here to sort of just grab back a little bit more control on how they source their energy. So kudos to all of you guys for doing that.
Just to add a tidbit to this, and I had mentioned to you that I was pretty busy today. During the funeral, I figured I'd be able to just go home. Well, work wanted me to come in. For the past over 2 weeks, we have got power glitches. Has anybody up in this area noticed their clocks having to be reset just momentarily.
Yes.
Well, where I work, today it happened 5 times. Every time it happens, you gotta go through the whole facility and reset MCC boards. Now, I'm expecting a call tonight. But the point is, I spoke to the head honchos at Central Hudson, Albany directed me to, and they have no explanation. They can't understand what's going on. And it's not just our facility, it's residents that are complaining now and the other facility next to us. So it's, I guess what I'm getting at here is like, we're paying more money and all of a sudden we're getting worse service. And they keep giving me the overtime and I keep saying, well, if you're gonna give it to me for this something that can't be figured out, I guess I can't say no. It's just kind of on that same line.
That's all I can say,
Yeah.
buckle up. Fortis is going to make money any way they can.
So Billy, that was the only change that you needed to make?
Yes, and basically, it's, rule number 8 was defined that says, due to New York State DOT parking regulations on most of Main Street, most vendors are required to vacate on Saturday night. No overnight security is provided. That's driven from last year, around 11 o'clock. Vendors were set up inappropriately on parts of Main Street, and thank God I don't answer my cell phone, but other members of the street festival down at 1 o'clock in the morning, removing vendors from Main Street.
Well, I just want to say, I'm going to make a motion to refer this to the police chief.
I sent it to Bob and Terry both.
Okay, good. And, you know, that is his big issue, that
Yes.
the streets need to be done, you know, people need to pack up and be off the street at night. And so we need some kind of, you know, assurance from whoever is in charge, and I know it can't all be on your shoulders, Billy, as it usually is, that, that somebody's assigned that job at the end of the night to do that. And it can't be you, Bill.
No, it's the vendor committee.
Okay.
Well, you
The
know,
vendor committee can't go home and leave everybody still standing there.
But, you know, again, you know, every year we get new wrinkles, we iron them out, and then next year new wrinkles pop up. Never had this problem before,
Right.
but, you know, we've
Well-
taken steps to address it, and hopefully we won't have that problem this year.
That's always been good.
If the farmer's market turns out to be a Willow Kiln, will there be a farmer's market during the street?
No. That's the one day that we will be off.
This
There's no
problem,
way to get anybody to get down to the farmers.
No,
Yeah.
well, at one point, they're not moving the farmer's market into the festival, but who's gonna have to fight those crowds and go and buy 2 bags of groceries and then come back out?
Yeah, but you get a lot more customers.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I was thinking you have thousands of people there. People would buy things for the farmer's market.
Well, they can
if
get a
were
booth just like everybody else.
Yes.
Well,
But
yes,
then they
yeah.
have a few beers and then.
They can get a booth, that's what they should be doing.
Right, no, they could do that.
Rice Orchards have had a booth on Main Street.
Instead of dunking, they could be throwing raw vegetables.
I'm
I
kind
don't volunteer for that.
of.
Water, okay.
He's just saying that they want to make sure that everybody's off. This was a little bit of an issue last year. The vendors who are not like box trucks, vendors can stay there because they're parking a truck.
Oh,
But anybody's tent or people were leaving like, you know,
They're
their
pop-ups.
coolers in the middle of the road and
Right.
stuff, you know, so they can't.
But it was only like down towards the 1850 house, that
Yes,
that
yes.
guy there.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't. he was the only one.
Every year you have one or two that just like, oh, I can just leave my stuff here. No, you can't.
There was one
We
year.
just gotta make sure somebody from the festival is making sure that those people.
But
are back up.
overall, I think everybody's been
Oh,
very,
yeah.
I just
very
think about 4
divided.
years ago, someone left a pop-up that they zipped up right across from Rosendale Firehouse. They left it up there all night. And I was surprised when I come down at 6:30 next morning that everything was still in the tent.
really, I apologize, my wife threw me out that night, it was my pop-up.
Well, you weren't sleeping in
Did you check Tommy Dog?
it.
So, Billy, I'm intrigued by item 12. You have lost children and lost and found in the same line. Do you put the lost children in the lost and found box?
That's a
Like-
good,
Yeah.
this morning.
With the sunglasses.
And we need all the lost children, a couple of express one night. Usually the lost children are shepherded to the police command post, because anyone could say, this is my child.
Does that happen? I mean,
It hasn't happened in Rosendale, but it has happened in other locations, kind of why we lean, that might have been, I forget which police chief's suggestion that was. Might have been Mike DiPattista, who said, you don't want anybody coming up and saying, oh, that's my child. You want to make sure that goes to the parent. So if a child is lost, we bring them to the police command post and let them make sure they get the right parent and the right child matched up. And we still have 6 pairs of keys from last year that no one ever claimed.
I think this is a great time to say thank you, Billy, for all the hard work you do for, you really do a lot.
the market, the festival,
You're all over the
basically
place.
everything.
You understand my drive? When I was young, there was like 7 or 8 bars in Rosendale. While I got down to 2, so I had to channel my energy someplace.
Okay, well, we're gonna review it and pass it around to the powers that be. Did you send a copy to Highway?
I sent
Bob
to
Gallagher?
Bob and Perry both probably sometime in late March,
Okay.
and I waited to hear back from them. Perry had said that he estimated his prices for 2013 to be, and Carl had given me what we paid the town for highway, what we paid the town for police, is our starting point. Although
Okay.
it may actually change after the festival.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? We're good. No? Okay. Thanks,
Liz
Bill.
Gallagher to pick out all my mistakes. I was waiting for that.
Okay, next on the agenda. Out of district user, the, that's all right, Ken knows, he was at that meeting, you can, if you want to.
This is a resolution that's going to be before our board and the Marbletown board. It's going to ask the New York City DEP to allow the High Falls Water District to sell water outside of the district. The present agreement right now with the High Falls Water District precludes it from selling water outside of the district. So because Ulster County Community College has a need for a backup water system, we've been in discussion with them for the better part of 2 years now. And some of the infrastructure has been put in place. There's been county approvals made. The next step is to get DEP to authorize the sale of the water outside of the district. So that's what this resolution will be.
And also to get the rate that,
Yep.
that keeps it so there's a profit margin,
Yeah.
otherwise.
And that's the whole reason, well, not the
At a
whole reason.
different rate.
I mean, I shouldn't say profit
Yes.
margin, I should say a rate that we can still be able to charge, something. we
Right.
can-
Have a revenue.
In other words, we're looking for beyond DEP to authorize us to just flow the water to the college at the rate that we get it, would be able to sell it at a higher rate and offset some of the expenses within the High Falls Water District.
And this is, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, because it's such a small district, thank goodness it's a new system, so there's not a lot of O&M right now, but coming down the pike, there will be. So we need to, build in some insulation, and this would be, in addition to the rentals of the cell applications on the tower, which does give the district some income, this would potentially give the district additional income, because eventually there's going to be breakdowns, and as we all know, we're not talking a few dollars, they're major things when it comes to a plant like that, so.
Do they make exceptions like this ever? Like just out?
Yeah,
Well,
to
the very-
use for college or?
we expect they're probably going to say yes. We've
Yeah.
had several meetings with them.
This has actually been going on for
but-
4 years. that we
But,
do this.
it's not a done deal. It's not a done deal. This doesn't make it a done deal. There's still a lot to go
This
through.
is just one of the steps in
But-
the process.
And to be honest, there's a chance that down the road, there may be other out-of-district users. And we're hoping that as we do this, if, we plan this in a way that allows for other out-of-district users, so that this pipe will, put us in a position where, of course, it'll be more for Marbletown and Rosendale, but there are a lot of people that need water in other areas that are close
Yeah.
by, so this would be the first step in that direction.
And you wouldn't expand the district?
You would expand,
No,
you would,
the district
not for
has a,
this, not for this, but
But
there's a
if
chance we
there were
could,
other out of
we probably would
district
then.
users or?
once this is authorized and the college gets hooked up, then it just seems like a natural progression that, you know, from that infrastructure, there's an opportunity to run,
Everyone in between the district and the college.
well, specifically the Stone Ridge Hamlet, you know, which, they have a Stone Ridge Leggett Road, you know, they probably end up doing the loop, you know, from
They're
the
talking
college.
about there's some need in that little area right where the hop place and Jake's is too.
The intersection of High Falls, the business section over there, because the line would be running right through that, it just makes sense to allow those businesses and homeowners in that particular area to tap into it.
And
Because,
we've also had a request on Bruceville Road too, but once, it's more like we gotta get this started. This has to be first before we can look at any other out-of-district users.
yeah,
And then also they show can, is that the water?
The water's coming through?
Where's that?
not a show can, it's coming from the upper one,
Rondell?
no, the one above,
Good question.
yes.
It's
Where?
from the Pacton, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, it's the same water line that supplies New Paltz. So that's what this is all about, and it has to go before both boards because both boards are the administrators of the district.
And,
The board of commissioners, which I sit on.
yeah, but basically the resolution is to authorize us to write a letter to them to officially ask, because you can have all the discussions in the world, but until the water district asks for this to happen, can't happen. So, but in the contract, it says we have to ask, so that's what we're doing. So,
And I was at a award ceremony at the college last night, and President Cott reminded both Council Brian and I that this would be before us, and he's anxiously awaiting the results of the vote.
I think it's something that really needs to be done. It's a win-win situation. I mean, the college is growing. You know, from when I went up there in '76, it's just attendance, and it seems to be growing even more, I think.
And the water district has, I don't know the numbers, Terry's not here, but, you know, we're only using a fraction of the
Right.
water that we're allowed to.
We're allowed
use.
340,000 gallons a day, and we're using approximately 46,000 gallons a day.
No,
So
that
it's-
makes sense.
Makes sense to
It
have,
does.
to
To
people
support
are
the
so
college,
close
it
that
makes
need
sense.
water and might as well, you know, use it.
And it's gonna help us down the road for profitability as we
Within the
years and years, and within a district. And then we'll be able to add on with that much water that's available. The college isn't gonna expend all of that. We'll be able to loop up to other people, and it's just gonna help sustain High Falls Water Department that much longer and that much better into the future.
You
All right.
gotta-
Yes, Jay.
On that water system, you've got more water than you're actually using. But if you start to sell it off, you're gonna have to put in a filter for that amount of water that you're getting rid of. So you gotta remember to keep that on your block, so when you say so much water you can buy, but we're also gonna have to put up a $60,000 filter system to give you that water. So,
No, this
That
is
goes
already
through
in
the plan.
place.
Right.
The plant already is, can accommodate that.
Yeah.
Have you been up to the plant?
the plant up there can clean 340,000 gallons of water?
Oh, sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's not just the water that you use, not just the 40.
No.
I'm sure
No,
Terry
Because
must
that's our problem is in Rosendale now, is that, and again, the other problem is you go 30 years with a product, and everything has to be rebuilt. And that's what's happening with Rosendale, and we have a lot of people. We have 347 people paying for all of this.
Well, that's exactly right.
Right, and now this time, we're gonna try to put in an extra filter besides replace the 3 or 4 that we already have.
Yep.
So that's where our money's that we need for, because,
Yeah.
and I really wish there was some way where we could alternate how we replace things, because like we just filtered the 3 filters for the sewer. We did all 3 of them at once.
Yeah.
25, 30 years from now, all 3 of them are gonna have to be done again, and the same 340 people are gonna have to pay for it.
We won't be
Yeah,
here,
they,
so.
that's true, but I mean, but if they could have done 1 pump,
Right.
10 years later, put another one, it would break up your spending of fees.
Well, the key is to find a way to have a capital fund.
It's
We
kind
gotta
of-
start having a capital fund for these things.
That was just kind of, you know,
Yeah,
that was the
That
the
was the
draw of the
mistake. They
cards.
never had anything
When they
in
built
place.
that, they didn't foresee
Rosendale.
growth.
Yeah.
High Falls, when they
That's
built
why we
it,
have such a
they
small district.
foreseen growth. So
Even like
that's why
$2
you have a lot more available, and
Make a big difference.
Rosendale is in regression where it needs to be completely redone. That's just there's nothing you can do about that,
All right,
that's just the way it
let's
happened.
move on, guys, because we're like,
It's getting late.
oh my God, this is a lot.
American Pictures comes on at 10 o'clock.
Is that a
There's been
report?
attrition.
Okay, so the next thing is the New York State Unified Solar Permit. We talked about doing this. I've reviewed this with Tom Fiore. He likes the idea. So next week, I'd like to do a resolution to support it and give Jen permission to apply for the CFA, which luckily, I've been told, this
Yes.
CFA is not due
Yeah.
until September.
Right, it's
We get
rolling.
extra